Good morning, everybody. Betting for breakfast. Mark Drumheller here with Dave Gleckner. Another college football Saturday, and we have an excellent show lined up today. We have two actually guests coming in to talk about the West Virginia Texas game. It's a game that I have a play on the side and a total, so I can't wait to talk about it. But Braden from Undercover Capper and Gio Lenhart coming in, both guys very in tune with what's going on in West Virginia. So very excited to talk to them. We got a jam-packed show, but guys, we also want to hear from you as well. So make sure if you have any best bets, you drop them in the comments, right? And before we get started, make sure you're downloading the Sharp app, right? The AI prediction model we have over at the Sharp app doing great things. So the best way to get involved, download the Sharp app, hop in the Discord channel below. We'll be in there sweating out the games all day today. Just a tremendous card, Dave. I wish we could talk for 4 hours about today's card, but lots of fun. Action started early this week. BYU obviously handled business on Thursday night. And then last night we saw, UCLA run Washington out of the stadium. It was, 40-16. They went up. They completely dominated the Washington Huskies, who had a ton of momentum coming in. Kalen DeBoer in that offense with Michael Penix, really didn't hold up last night against UCLA. I mean, that was a game I was on Washington. I kind of teetered back and forth. I saw the line and said, you know what, this tells me UCLA, but I just couldn't get there. Chip had let me down a couple times before and ended up paying the price, man. UCLA definitely the side in that matchup, and they looked very impressive.
They did, and we love some Chip back here on the East Coast. I mean, we had our, Chip mania for a while here in Philadelphia, and I still – part of me still says he couldn't make it work. So I'm hoping to see him make it work. Problem is he's in UCLA where 10 fans show up. So I don't know, even if he makes it work there, really is it going to mean anything. But last night I guess it was finally like the DTR show, right? I mean, I know he's been so polarizing over his 4 years as a starting quarterback in UCLA. You get the highs, you get
over
the lows.
His decade at UCLA.
Yeah, it really has felt like that, right? Like Spencer Sanders in Oklahoma State. It feels like forever. But I honestly saw some consistent play last night. I saw some throws on time. I
seen the maturation.
That's what I saw. And I said, man, this guy, what we thought he could have been maybe 2 years ago. He's finally getting there. And UCLA is going to be dangerous. They are going to be very for me, I throw out the Pac-12 standings right now because they're going to change every single week. That league is so topsy-turvy, and we're going to see some of it today. But good on Chip. I had a little UCLA money line. I did like Washington on, like you said, it was like back and forth, but it smelled UCLA. And I guess they finally came through with one of the big wins in Chip's era.
Yeah, I liked them early in the week, and then I was actually going to bet MGM tonight, and I was discussing it with Trista Crick and Ryan Horvat, and that Ryan came out and said, "Listen, if you're on the fence, bet UCLA." And I was like, "Yeah, you know what? I think I'm going to." And then I went around, I dug into the data, and there's just they came to play, but there's a lot of unproven people in that secondary in UCLA, especially in the back end, that I just wasn't sure of. Just couldn't get there. And, but they played well. They showed well. So, this is Chip's thing, though. And you said, hey, the standings are going to look a lot different. This is Chip's thing. Starts strong, makes you believe. And then as the season goes on, they kind of underperform. So I expect the same sort of thing. I'll be looking at UCLA as a fade going forward. I'm just not convinced that, that they're just going to be a dominant team in the Pac-12.
I hear you, man. But Pac-12 is fun.
Yeah, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Pac-12 in a bit. But first, I want to talk about the big game, Alabama and Arkansas. Alabama going on the road, laying 17 points against the Arkansas Razorbacks. And Dave, to me, I think this is a fascinating game when you look at it. Alabama, obviously, one of the three teams that were crowned playoff teams before the season started, right? That's kind of how it goes in college football. Everybody knows, that they're going to be there at the end. And this was one of Nick Saban's best teams, he said, coming into the season. And, we saw them struggle against Texas, and they have a history of struggling on the road. And I think that's what has a lot of people backing Arkansas. Arkansas taking a lot of money in the market here as big dogs. And, before I get started, I wanted to get your take on, what you see in this matchup. Alabama laying 17 here. I like them as favorites. I'm not going to lie. I laid the big number here with Alabama. But what are your thoughts in this matchup?
So Arkansas looks susceptible on defense. I think Bryce Young has one of those coming out games. I think Alabama is able to score freely. Where I'm a little concerned with the 17.5 is that I think KJ Jefferson has shown he can score against good defenses. He did it early in the season against Cincinnati. Last week, they put up a ton of yards against A&M, only to watch a kicker hit the top of the upright to lose a game from about 20 yards out. So I think, in the same breath, I think Arkansas can maybe play with pace too. I read a stat, I think it was earlier this week. Bryce Young has had 5 true road games in his career. 4 have been decided by 3 points or less. So Alabama's not very accustomed to being on the road. And when they are, they showed it in Texas and they've shown it in other situations. It's hard for them. And this is huge for Arkansas. I tend to lean towards the points in Arkansas, but with it being that big of a spread, I can understand, where you're at and, where the books are at. I lean more towards the over. That's the play I'm playing. 61. I think we can get there, and I think we can get there pretty easily. Your mute came on again, bud.
Yeah, I like that. And there's a couple things that, when I handicapped this that I looked at and, you touched on some of it, right? And it's the Arkansas defense, right? This defense, this secondary is atrocious. And listen, they did not get exposed against Texas A&M, but we talked about this on this show last week. Right, yeah, Texas A&M, still couldn't move the ball against this secondary. And it's like, we talked about it before. 2 games prior, Spencer Rattler dices them up for over 300 yards. Jason Shelley dices them up for over 300 yards, right? So what do we think Bryce Young's going to do here? You know what I mean? They're going to score whenever they want in this matchup. And, a lot of people talk about, the Texas game and Alabama's inconsistencies on the road, right? On the road, they haven't looked the same, which is, typical of most college teams. But I think this is a spot Tom Casale talked about this and, from Action Network. And these guys are crying on the sidelines after the game. Last week. They were devastated. And now it's okay, dry your eyes, son. Get up there and run into this, buzzsaw called Alabama and get up for this game, right? It's going to be a tough get-up spot for them. And I think Alabama makes a statement. The narrative that we hear all week is Alabama can't win on the road. Alabama can't win on the road. Do you know who knows Alabama hasn't played well on the road? The players. You want to know why they know? Because Nick Saban has been pounding it into their head all week. So I expect them to come out here, win with margin. I laid the 17 with Alabama. I think it's deciding this matchup. I really do. I think that, I think Arkansas is not as strong as they looked. I think they got some favorable matchups, and this is one that is very unfavorable. I think it's going to be a big game for the passing game, big day for the passing game of Alabama. And I think, the over is in play too. You talked about it at 61. I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's my bigger play of the game. The past history of how Alabama performs can work 2 ways, right? And I think the way you're leaning on it is the way that they showed up in Mississippi State in their one true road win recently when they won 49-9. So if they're able to rally troops, they're going to win. They're going to win this game with a lot of margin. So I think we're going to know pretty early. That's why I'm probably not heavily on either side here, but the over for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I like it. It's going to be a fun game. It's going to tell us a lot about Alabama because if they do come out and struggle in this spot, listen, in the beginning of the year, everyone kind of said, hey, it's Alabama, Ohio State, and then Georgia, right? And then we see Georgia smash Oregon for 6 points, did whatever they want. And then it was okay, maybe it's Georgia, then Alabama and Ohio State, right? But this is going to tell us a lot. If they come out and struggle in this spot against Arkansas, it's going to be, I think, a precursor to knowing that, hey, maybe the Texas game wasn't a blip. Maybe the Texas game, really told us more about Alabama than we thought. And, but I think Saban's going to have these guys motivated. I think they come, to rock and roll. But I think they win with margin here. To 17.5, it's a big number to lay in this spot. But I do think Alabama is the side. But, Dave, let's move on to one of your best bets that you like. And we're going back to the Pac-12, right? A little Pac-12 after dark last night. And now we're going back to a spot, a team that got a lot of bettors paid against USC has to get up. We talked about Arkansas having to get up after that tough conference game, play Alabama. Now Oregon State has to get up and play Utah. How do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, and for those of you that have watched this show consistently, You know I'm a Beavers guy. Been cashing their tickets a lot, including last week. Another good win when they're playing in Corvallis. They are very tough, and they should have won that game, but in the same breath, they got outgained. Like whatever you say, they got the cover, but they have to bounce back off the carpet this week in a game that they really feel like they're 3-1, could be 4-0. I think that emotion of losing that game, the way they lost, Chance Nolan throwing 4 interceptions, is really going to do them some damage when traveling to Utah in a game that starts kind of early for them. I think it starts at 12 p.m. West Coast time. So you got an early game. You got a team that's really thinking, spinning their heads, similar to what Arkansas is doing. And go and play Utah team that is just highly motivated after losing to Florida, but not only highly motivated because of the loss in the first week of the season, highly motivated because they lost one Pac-12 game last year, and it was to this same Oregon State team, 34-22, up in Corvallis. They've had this penciled, sharpied, everything highlighted, you could say, on this calendar for the return of the Beavers and to return the favor that they gave them last year. Oregon State couldn't run the ball last week. Very disappointing. Fenwick had like 29 yards. Well, guess what? Utah let up 6 total yards rushing last week. I think it was to Arizona State. So they've let up 3 combined touchdowns in their last 3 games in their wins. Utah's defense is tough, rugged. If Nolan throws 4 picks against USC, I'm not going to say he's going to throw 4 today. Some of them were tipped, but he's going to have a hard time finding some space. Only 17 completions last week. They couldn't run the ball. I think it's a similar script this week. I like Utah minus the 10, and I think Utah's, got something to say in this Pac-12 race.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And it's kind of, you have to kind of, they zig, you zag. And that's the thing is, listen, Oregon State, very spirited effort against USC, but ended up in a very big letdown, right? Lost a game that they definitely should have won. Now they have to go into this Utah team who has just been annihilating everything in their path since they lost to Florida, And I think it's a team, and this is what matters in college, that, you have to be willing to win with margin. And are they motivated to win with margin? And Utah is doing the thing where they know they have 1 loss on their record and they got to show well. You know what I mean? They have to show well at the end of the year. They have to have these big blowouts if they want to be considered, for either, a massive bowl game or possibly the playoffs if they continue to run the table.
I was going to ask you that. I mean, don't you think they're still in play for the playoffs? A loss in week 1 does not kill them. No. I don't think it eliminates them, especially when we see Oklahoma losing, a team that was on the fringe, Notre Dame not doing I think they're in play still.
That 4th spot is up for grabs. I mean, Oklahoma looks like they're not going to get there. But I think the Pac-12 has a chance to get that 4th person if Clemson slips, right? If Clemson dominates, obviously DJ looked a lot better, but they need to get some people back in the secondary. Clemson's a whole nother story. But yeah, I think that it's really open for the Pac-12 if they can if Clemson does slip. If Clemson runs the table, and then Clemson to get in there, in that 4th spot. But yeah, they're definitely motivated. They're definitely motivated to win. A couple people hopping in the comments. Our guy Dan Green, love it. Rainy day, unders in play a lot. You got to be careful. You got to watch the forecast because it's not rainy everywhere. And here's the thing, that we want to keep in mind. The people knew it was going to be rainy. So they've been hammering these lines all week. A lot of them, you're seeing them, they got plummeted down, and then sometimes the rain doesn't come. You'll see the lines get pushed up. So make sure you track the line movement. You want to get the best of the number, but the number you're getting today, if there is weather, it is incorporated in that. So make sure that your handicap, is based on the teams in the field, their strengths, what the opponent defense, how they can stop them if you're looking to play those unders. So, and again, rain, not too much. Like rain could cause a lot of turnovers, which could lead to short fields, could lead to overs. It's really the wind that you want to look at that's going to push 100%. These totals down.
100%. I was saying that last night on a show when we were doing college DFS, that Maryland-Michigan State game, the rain will be gone, but it's the tailwinds that come behind it. Keep an eye on that.
The winds, because then they can't throw. They can't throw into the ball. They got to hand it off, and the defense knows they're handing it off. So it's 100%. Our guy Eric popping in, man. He loves the Beavers.
Yes,
you know him. You don't play around. Our guy Eric, man, we appreciate you tuning in for sure. I think we missed him last week, but he's back this week, so that's good.
He was with me.
Hit us up. Hit us up with the best bets, man. Eric, give us some winners. But listen, let's hop in now. Let's bring on Braden from Undercover Capper. Listen, if you guys aren't following Undercover Capper, make sure you follow him. He's got some great plays lined up, but more importantly, has some excellent insight into West Virginia and Texas. So can't wait to talk to him about that. We're going to bring him on now. We're going to talk about the Mountaineers taking on the Longhorns. Been a crazy year for the Longhorns with Clint Overs getting injured. Not going to be back today. They're going to get Hudson Card, but still a very interesting game. I have two plays. I have a play on the side and I have a play on the total in this matchup. So I'm interested to see what Braden has to say. So let's bring him on right now. Braden, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
It's awesome. So listen, fun game. I think this is that lines up here with the Mountaineers traveling to Texas to take on a Houston team, take on a Texas team that has been a little bit of Jekyll and Hyde already this year, right? You know, they come out with Ewers and, you know, early in the season, he looks great. The defense looks, you know, terrible. And then against, you know, some pretty spotty competition, then they get the big Alabama game, right? And, you know, they dominate. They looked physical. They looked tough. They gave Alabama all they could handle. But offensively, they were way too conservative. They couldn't get the job done. So now they're home in a spot against West Virginia. I know you being a West Virginia graduate, you have a ton of insight into the program, the things that they're doing. And before we get into the actual game, Braden, just tell me a little bit about the pulse of what's going on in West Virginia. I know Neil Brown really hasn't delivered the results that a lot of people have been expecting. So, you know, what is the feeling like? How do you think their motivation is going to be getting up for this Texas team? This is a big spot for them.
Right, yeah. Neil Brown's definitely got some pressure on him after Kansas, a game you're never, ever supposed to lose in the Big 12, especially at home. Pitt, a big rivalry. Neil Brown, maybe not. You know, it's a big rivalry for the schools, but Neil Brown been there for, 4 years now, 4 or 5 years. He probably doesn't understand it. A lot of the kids from West Virginia on the West Virginia team play on the offensive, defensive line. So that was big to them. I think they really stepped up in that game and looked better than what most people thought they would to start the season. I think Pitt was very overrated coming into the season. So I liked West Virginia. We actually hit West Virginia in that spot. In this spot, it's kind of weird for me because Virginia Tech, another huge rivalry on the road in a tough environment, and they win 20 or 33-10. That might have been their first defensive turnover all year. I don't think their secondary is very good. Neil Brown, you said I graduated from West Virginia, so I know a little bit about it, but I'm also a big West Virginia hater. I'm going to be the first person to tell you what's wrong with the team. But with that being said, I think we have a really good offense. I think JT Daniels leading that offense. We have really good receivers. If we don't drop a pass against Pitt, I think we win the game outright. A drop pass right through the hands for a pick six. I think we were moving the ball. We were doing what we needed to do. I think against Texas, we do the same thing. I know we've talked about, you know, a high-powered offense going into a tough environment. Look at the under immediately. If Ewers was in this game, I would have taken the over at whatever number it would have been. If it would have been 350, I probably would have sprinkled it. Our West Virginia secondary is not that good. I think Ewers would have picked them apart. But Hudson Card, he's not doing bad. I think he's just doesn't have the trust from the coaches yet. So they're going to rely pretty heavily on Bijan, and West Virginia's run defense, I think, is good enough to hold that in check, and I think their offense is good enough to score with Texas.
Yeah, definitely. You know, I'm actually in this game. I'm actually on the Mountaineers, and I'm on the over. So I did play some over just because I think, you know, you talked about West Virginia's defensive backs. You know, they had the injury. They lost the guy. Who was it? Woods, I think they lost. Was it Woods? Who did they lose against? Pitt. But they lost the defensive back there. Yep, little back. So they're a little banged up back there. And, you know, offensively, you know, they're top. I want to say they're 32nd in EPA per play. They have some explosion. Donaldson. They have some guys that they can use there. And where I think against this Texas team, you know, we saw last week against Texas Tech, I think it kind of pulled back the curtain a little bit about this Texas defense is that if you're running tempo and you're kind of moving and getting after them at a fast pace, you know, I think you can have a lot of success. If you're kind of playing slow and letting them kind of set up and you know, kind of adjust to what you're doing, I think that, you know, they're a lot tougher. And I think that, you know, against Alabama, we saw that Alabama was a loud environment. Didn't seem like communication was great. You know, they struggled there that way. But I think West Virginia, if they're, if they come in with the right game plan, I think they have a chance to put up a lot of points here. I think this is a big number, and I'm on the over. How do you think about from a side perspective? You think they can keep this within the number?
Shit. Good. Am I good now?
Yeah.
Yep, you're good.
Yeah, I think they keep it within this number for sure. I mean, some notable trends. They're 4-1-1 the last 6 against the spread against Texas, and 3-1-1 last 5 in Austin. This is their third rivalry game of the season, and I think Texas is maybe their biggest rivalry, especially starting out with 2 losses in the first few weeks. So I think they really step up in this one. I think they can score with anybody in the Big 12. I don't think there's going to be any issues with their offense. To me, it comes down to coaching decisions, which has been a big issue for West Virginia.
Yeah, Eric checking in, man. He's telling us, I guess West Virginia's getting steamed. So that makes me feel good having the 9. Yeah, it looks like that's the Ewers news. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think,
but we all knew Card was going to play, right? I didn't think it was coming.
No. And
go ahead, Dave.
I'll give you just my perspective, little research on this game. One look ahead, right? We talked about it a little bit before we went on the air. Red River rivalries next week. They're talking about Quinn Ewers just playing him for next week, right? They're really their minds on that game. I'm not saying they're just letting West Virginia come in here and try and take a dub and go. They'll have some focus on them, but it is real. The look ahead spot. Texas Tech Texas coming off the Texas Tech loss too. A little bit of a hangover there. A terrible loss in overtime. How they let that one happen. So I do think it's a prime spot for WVU. Another thing I like, WVU's only allowed 104 yards on the ground per game. I think they're 20th in the nation. So stop Bijan. They can stay within this number. So I'm with you guys. I like where WVU is at. I think it's a great spot for them. And I think the strengths of WVU match up against the strengths of Texas, and that's why they can keep it close.
Yep. I agree. I actually had West Virginia at 98 yards per game defensively on the ground. So 25th is what I saw, but same concept. I think they hold Bijan in check.
Yep.
Good stuff, Braden. Listen, before we get you out of here, let's talk. Give us your best bet on the board. I know you were looking at a team, got some interesting news this morning. Don't know if you're still on that team or not, but let the people know if you got one bet, one to hit on the board. What are you looking at?
I really liked Minnesota. I've been on them ever since I saw that Kirk Soraka was coming back with BJ Fleck. You see what he did in 2019. They were averaging, I think, 34, 35 points a game while still having a really slow-paced offense. They're really efficient on offense, and I think they get whatever they want against Purdue offensively. Defensively, it's not crazy to say that they're a top 5 defense in the country right now. Granted, they haven't really played anybody special, but Michigan State last week, I was on Minnesota the first 2 weeks of the season, backing them with the points, but against Minnesota, I saw that Minnesota's strength defensively was, against the rush. Their secondary sucks, obviously. So I took the under in that one, and Minnesota just dominated them. They had 240 rush yards against Michigan State, who only gives up 127 a game. Purdue in this one, they give up 115 on the ground. Minnesota runs the ball probably, I don't know this, but probably 60% of the time. If they do have to throw, Tanner Morgan's having a good year. I just hope he doesn't, Tanner Morgan in this game. Another stat that I saw this morning was Purdue's only converting 41% on third down, and Minnesota is at like 83%. And Purdue is also giving up 83% red zone scores, while Minnesota is scoring 94% of their trips to the red zone. I think Minnesota just scores at will in this game. They get whatever they want on the ground. And O'Connell coming back, that drops the line, obviously. I think I might like Minnesota even more now at 8.5, 9, whatever it's at. But they held them to 13 points last year. I think their defense is better this year. I think their offense is much better this year. So I think they could deal with 17, 21, 24 points maybe even, and still cover. The number I got was 12, but 8.5, 9.
Yeah,
it's
going
to keep dropping all the way till game time. It might get down to 6.5.
Yeah, it's under. It's 9.5 now in DK, but I saw some 8.5s in some spots. I think we're seeing a kind of resistance. The initial steam down with the O'Connell news, and now you're kind of seeing some resistance where Minnesota backers are like, "Yep, I'll take this all day. You want to give me this number?
Absolutely.
Boom, boom, boom." So now we're seeing money come in on the other side probably settle. But I think I agree with you. I think anything under 10 is probably a play here for Minnesota. Absolutely love it. Braden, we appreciate you coming on. Before we get out of here, tell everybody where they can follow you, and where they can get your work.
Yeah, I run a Twitter called Undercover Capper. Look it up. You'll see this logo right there. And
love it.
Free plays, free trends, free notes, every paid service, but I also give out free trends, free plays every week. So hope to see you guys. Hope to get some followers from this, and hope to help you cash.
Awesome. Well, Braden, thanks so much for joining us, man. Everyone out there, go follow him, Undercover Capper. Listen, smart plays. At least there's some free stuff out there too as well. Give you a little taste, unless you want to, buy the service. But Braden, we really appreciate you coming on. Good luck today on all your bets, my man.
Thank you. Good luck to you too.
Thanks, Braden.
All right, good stuff there in the West Virginia-Texas game. We're going to get a little bit more from Gio Lenhart coming on in a few minutes. But before that, me and Dave are going to hit you with some more winners, man. That's what I like to hear. And Dave, I'm going to get the party started here. Going to move quickly on this one. Not going to be the most exciting game in the world, right? Might not be easy on the eyes, but, Brett Bielema goes back to Madison, Wisconsin, Camp Randall Stadium, to take on the Wisconsin Badgers. And the Badgers are a team that I love to fade. This number has been getting steamed down as well today. So I got it at 7, which I thought was the key number. And it was there all week. It was there for the pickings. It was there all week. Released this one on the Sharp app. So members got this early in the week. Now down to 6.5. I saw this morning. Not sure exactly where it's at. Still 6.5. You actually get a cheap 105. Pay the extra nickel over even money at DraftKings. But I like Illinois here in this matchup. Chase Brown. They bring in the running game with him, and I think they're going to be able to keep this game close. Whether it's going to be in the 60s, it's 5 mile per hour wind, so it's not like going to affect anything. But I think both teams here run the football, at each other, and I just think Illinois has enough to give them problems, right? When you look at this type of game script, you're going to get a close game, right? What's going to be important? Field position, right? Well, Wisconsin's one of the worst teams in the Big Ten at getting sacks, tackles for loss, those types of plays, where Illinois has done a great job of that, that sort of thing, creating turnovers, Illinois has done a good job of. And I think, against a quarterback like Graham Mertz, that's going to matter. I think the defense, the red zone defense is going to be huge in this one. But, Illinois is a team that has shown that they can, get the job done if they have to. So I like them here getting the points. I think in this matchup, it's going to be very close. I think Illinois is live here. I think they have the better running game in the matchup. And if they can force, Graham Mertz to try and make plays with his arm, I think they can take advantage, get some turnovers. And if that happens, it's short field for Illinois. I think they get the job done here. I think they're live. I took them at 7. I would take them at the 6.5. I like the Fighting Illini in this one, Dave.
Yeah, listen, I will never bet Graham Mertz. I'm putting that on the show now. So, I'm good. Whatever you say. Anything against Wisconsin at this point, man, I'm good. I know it's just they're just such a disappointing team. Great running back in Braylon Allen, but outside of that, I do think I think Illinois can stay within the number. When I was looking at I thought it should have been a couple points less. I'm trying to see where I had it at, but I was definitely leaning towards Illinois in this one. So I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah, definitely. We're on it. So let's get one more in before we bring in Gio and talk a little bit more about West Virginia and Texas. Dave, you got another one in the holster?
Sure, I do. And you know what? I gotta switch bands real fast for you guys. This team did me pretty good earlier in the season. One of my better bets of the season. And I think they're back at it and live today.
Oh,
Kentucky, man. I love this team. I love how Stoops coaches. Really interesting situation when you got the number 7 ranked team as a 6.5 point dog to the 14-point team. I get it, but here's a few things. Listen, Ole Miss really hasn't played anybody yet. We get that. Last week they were shut out in the second half against Tulsa. Tulsa dominated the game on the ground too. They ran for 262 yards. Tulsa did against Ole Miss. Now, Ole Miss strengths, we all know. You think of them as a run and shoot type. No, it's run and dribble. So really, Ole Miss, they
run and run some more.
Yeah, I mean, they just don't look very well in the passing game. They've turned it over 5 times against bad competition, but they're running great, 300 yards, a game on the ground. Well, what does Kentucky do? They've got a really good defense, only allowing 120 yards on the ground, and they've played some tougher competition. And the return of Chris Rodriguez Jr., I think, gives an added boost to this Kentucky team. He's one of their star running backs, was suspended for the beginning of the season. Back today, Kentucky ranks 120th with only 80 yards per game on the ground. He's definitely going to improve that. And like I said, Tulsa went for 262. I'm not saying Kentucky will, but I think there's an advantage here. If Kentucky can get rolling on the ground, they got a NFL caliber quarterback in the backfield with Will Levis. I think 6.5 is just too much in this game. And I think Stoops is going to keep showing that on the board. I'm just not convinced Ole Miss is that team yet. Troy even hung in there 28-10 early in the season. They smoked Georgia Tech, but me, you, and 3 of our friends could probably smoke Georgia Tech. So I like Kentucky. I think they're being disrespected. I think they'll play that card today. I think they are the better team. Will they win? Maybe not, but 6.5 I'll take.
Take the 6.5 going against my boy Lane Train, man. Who are you? No, I love it. Listen, it's a lot of points. Totally get it. Makes a lot of sense. Played a little bit of over in this matchup, and I'm going to explain to you why now. Chris Rodriguez comes back, gives Kentucky a boost, right? Otis Reese, Ole Miss's best defensive player, out, right? Yep. Out targeting suspension, worst rule in sports, right? They're suspending these kids for, out there targeting. But that's a whole nother story. But so, the key to this matchup is, and I've talked to people that are on the under and kind of went back and forth. Chris Rodriguez, first game back, is he going to have success? In front of a Kentucky defensive line that is not the same as he's used to, right? So this is offensive success rate running the ball. They're outside of, I think they're 126th without Rodriguez. Some of that's the running backs, some of that's Rodriguez, right? We know that Kentucky had to go back 3-4 deep on the depth chart because of injuries they had at the running back position. So how does he look in his first game back with this offensive line? I think that's going to be a key to this game, and especially against the Ole Miss defense without Reese, right? So it's there for them to take advantage of, and I think they're going to get points. And on the other side, we talked about Ole Miss, really haven't let Dart go to work, right? It's really been run. Yep. They're still running plays at the 7th fastest clip, but every week, all 4 weeks, they've been inside the top 8 as far as pace is concerned. They get to the line of scrimmage, they run, they play with pace, they play with tempo, and that leads me to the over in this one. I think that we're going to see some points here. The key is we haven't seen much from Dart. Kiffin has not let him loose. Is that by design? Was he sandbagging for conference play, or does he not trust Dart? And I think we're going to find out today.
Yep. And I mean, in the run game, Evans, Judkins will both get, their share of carries, and they'll have their success on the ground. They will get yards against Kentucky. When I like good defenses, it's inside the 20s. And inside the 20s, I think they'll bottle them up, and then will Dart be able to beat them? And that's the question I think will get answered very quickly today. I agree with you. I know Daryl Turner's been checking in, asking a few quick questions if we got a chance to answer his.
Yeah, let's get one before we get to Gio, and then we'll bring Gio on. South Alabama spread, Tulsa spread, Eastern Michigan spread parlay. Not sure
I'll take
I have
the one.
A play.
Yeah, okay. I'll take Eastern Michigan because he's asked about it a couple times. Listen, they're playing one of the worst teams in all college football, UMass. And I'm not even sure you could ever put any money on UMass, sober. So I guess in that sense, I like Eastern Michigan. The numbers I have here, I got more of a 17, 18-point favorite. I don't think you go wrong at 19. If it gets over 20, I'd probably put a pause on that. You can find better spots. So if you can stay under 20, I think I would like Eastern Michigan in that play.
Yeah, don't have much on Tulsa, but South Alabama I'm a little concerned about, only because they've been a wagon so far this year, right? They haven't dived into this one, but they've been paying bettors every week. They've been a team that a lot of people have been on and making a lot of money. And the key thing is has the market caught up here, right? So laying 8.5 on the road against Louisiana. I think it's a spot where Louisiana could stay within this number. Again, didn't dive into it too much, but that's what I would be concerned about is, the market already knows South Alabama now at this point. Like the cat's out of the bag. So this is a big number for them to be laying on the road. That would concern me a little bit, anything over 7. But, good luck with it, man. Again, the Tulsa game, I don't know much about it, but Daryl, we definitely appreciate you checking in.
I lean Cincy. Just to be honest, I kind of lean Cincy in that one. I think Tulsa played good last week, but it was like kind of flukish the way they outscored Ole Miss in the second half. I think it was 18-0, something weird. I think Cincy's on a little revenge tour, if you can believe that or not.
Yeah, could be. I mean, listen, they had a lot to prove this year. They lost a lot to the NFL. So, huge year for Luke Fickell and Cincy. But let's bring on Gio now. We'll get back to the West Virginia-Texas game. Our guy, Giovanni Betts is his betting service that he runs, Gio Lenhart. Listen, I've been following this guy for plenty of years, knows West Virginia inside and out. So can't wait to get his insight. I'm on West Virginia and Texas and the over. So hopefully he tells me I'm in good shape as well. But let's bring on Gio right now.
What's up, fellas?
Gio, how you making out, my man? How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Thanks so much for joining us, man. We got a fun game. This West Virginia team, I thought was going to be very interesting coming into the year. They go out and get Daniels. They get some offense. It's like finally, can they turn the corner? And it's been mixed results, right? We were not real sure about Neil Brown going forward, what's going to be the situation. But this is a big number here going to Texas.
Yeah, and Mark, like you just said, I'm all over the line and the over, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Well, here's the thing. West Virginia and Texas, the last time West Virginia went down to Texas, actually the last 3 times, that game has been decided by 4 points or less. So that's a good thing to start off with. I think in 2018, they lost 24-20. They won in 2018, 42-41. How can you forget that one? That was the Will Greer game.
Mm-hmm.
And then
good old Will Greer.
Oh, yeah. Boy, did we miss him. And then in 2020, they lost 17-13. So getting 9 here, you have to like that with those recent results. And for the over 62.5, like you said, Mark, this is an inexperienced secondary that comes into the game. Hudson Card isn't the greatest, but he's also not bad by any stretch of the imagination. He's going to be able to throw all over us, unfortunately. And West Virginia has given up the past 3 games. Texas has had a rusher over 100 yards, so they're going to be on the ground game too a lot. I can't imagine that West Virginia or that Texas doesn't score to mid to 30s. And then you look at our side of the ball, and it's the same thing. West Virginia has JT Daniels when we're never going to be out of a game with him. He's just too good. And Bryce Ford Wheaton's really good. CJ Donaldson, all of them.
I love CJ Donaldson, man. I think he's so versatile. There's so many things that they can do with him. I really think that he's brought a different element to the offense. I mean, I like West Virginia's offense. I just think that it's from a team perspective, they just haven't really put everything together. They haven't gotten the big plays when they needed them. But in this case against Texas, they should be able to keep it close. What do you think? If there's one thing that we should be looking for that would be a good indicator that hey, you know what? West Virginia's on the right path here. Do you think they need to just air it out and try and get on Texas early? Or, how do you think they should really go about it? What are some of the things you're hearing as far as big keys of the game for West Virginia?
I think West Virginia absolutely needs to air it out. That guy from last week from Texas Tech, I think, had over 330 yards. And he's
Donovan Smith or whatever.
Yeah, he's nowhere near JT Daniels.
And he ain't it. Yeah.
No, so you know that if he can throw on him, JT Daniels is going to be able to throw on him. And then, CJ Donaldson had 7 rushes for 125 yards in Pitt. Just hit him for a couple 10, 15-yard rushing attempts, and who knows? I mean, I think there's going to be it's going to be a barn burner tonight. I'm going to project the score to be around 37-31 Texas.
Oh, I love it. That would make me happy for sure. So if you had to pick side or total, right? We're aligned here. West Virginia +9 and the over. What do you like more?
I'd probably say side, just because West Virginia's played in 2 tough environments and they've covered in both of them. I'm not sure if Pitt or Texas, which one's better, but I think in terms of environment, West Virginia's played in tougher ones. So I don't think they'll be fazed by that. I really like the spread here, though, better than the over. But I'd take both.
Mhm.
I'm definitely
Awesome.
on both.
Awesome. Love it. So before we get on to your best bet, Gio, I want to tell you, Neil Brown survived the season. Is Neil Brown going to be back next year?
Oh, jeez.
I hate you with
I
the
had
Z.
their over/under win totals at 5.5. I thought that was a crazy number. I thought it should have been 6.5, but that Kansas loss really hurt for
Stings.
me. But
Stings.
I don't know if they're just good or they haven't played anybody decent yet. I think, unfortunately, Kansas isn't as good as what we all thought they were. I mean, Houston just lost to a third stringer last night.
Yeah.
So
Well, the other thing too is I feel like I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like West Virginia got smoked in the transfer portal. Like, are they going to be able?
they
to kinda,
absolutely did. They lost a ton
Yeah.
of defensive guys, and unfortunately, at least with their secondary, they just, and no knock to these teams, but they just replaced them with one double A schools. There's a huge difference between Murray State and James Madison and
yeah.
what Big 12 ball, So that's the transfer portal did kick our butts. It would have really kicked our butts if JT Daniels, we didn't get him.
Yeah, well, that was the big prize, and it was good to see them kind of get that big name in there because that's going to help in the future, right? Like if you can get those types of players at those skill positions, that's going to help you from a recruiting perspective. But let's get into your best bet. One bet on the board for the people. What do you like, Gio?
Well, Mark, I texted you this on Sunday. I was so excited to get ready on here. So
I'm aligned with you on this one. Go ahead, let it loose.
Absolutely. I'm going to take Georgia 28 at Missouri. 2 years ago, they went down to Columbia. They were 14-point favorites in a top 25 matchup. They went in there. They won 49-14. Sorry. Next year in 2021, they come up to Athens, Georgia. They beat Missouri 43-6. Now we look into this matchup today, and it's just two programs going in opposite directions. Georgia's on top of the college football world while Missouri's spiraling down. And Georgia, they played two Power 5 teams already. Missouri's played Kansas State. They lost 40-12. Then I don't know if you guys watched that game last week, but that was the worst loss I have ever seen a team take.
He fumbled at the goal line.
Yeah, that was brutal.
Yeah.
It was just, how do you bounce back from that? They can't.
Exactly. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. But they're getting outscored, I think, 57-26 in two Power 5 games. Georgia, on the other hand, is outscoring their opponents 97-10 in their Power 5 games. They've already went into a tough environment at South Carolina and handled business 49-7. I have absolutely no worries about this one. I think they beat this team by mid-30s at least.
Yeah, I think they beat the brakes off them, to be honest. And it's just that situation of where we've seen kind of like Georgia just playing with their food, against Kent State and not really, and this could be the week where we see them just go off and, put Missouri in the dirt. And we talked about it earlier with Arkansas, right? They don't get the bounce against A&M. They're crying on the sidelines, right? Like now they got to dry their eyes and play Alabama. And the same thing here with Missouri, right? They lost what could be their only chance, to win a game against a really competent opponent. And, and they fumbled at the goal line. They let it go. And now they got to pick themselves back up and play Georgia. You got to be kidding me. Georgia's going to steamroll this team. I like Georgia. I laid the 28 myself, Gio. Definitely good stuff. But before we get you out of here, tell everybody where they can follow you, everything you got going on, where they can find your work.
Yeah. So I'm on Twitter. My name's Giovanni, _bets. If you search the little bar, it's Gio_Lenhart. You can find me on there. First of all, I just want to thank you two guys for giving me this opportunity. Hopefully it gets me followers and gets my name out there. I just started my gambling account a year ago with 140 followers. So I'm hoping this can get me a little more followers like this. So I just wanted to say thank you guys and thank you for the viewers for giving me the time today.
No, definitely.
Awesome.
We
Great
appreciate you coming
Yeah.
on, Gio. We'll have to do it in the future. Like I said, I've been following you for a while. You do great work. So excited you come on and join us. We can chop it up a little bit face to face. So best of luck today on your plays. And, we'll be in touch in the future, man. Good luck. Let's get these wins.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. Have a good day.
All right. Thanks,
You
Gio.
too, bud.
Gio Lenhart, Giovanni's Bets. Listen, man, I've been following those guys for a couple years now. They do great work. They really do, man. They're grinders. They get after it, and they know West Virginia football. So, Dave, I am pumped that they are on the same side as me. I expect to get some wins on these two games. Didn't go crazy, you know what I mean? But, these are games that I bet. I did bet the West Virginia +9, and I took some over. Market going in the other direction. Not sure why, though. Market kind of leaning towards the under. I guess it's the Ewers news, but I always knew Hudson Card was going to play, so I didn't really factor that one in there. I didn't think they were going to roll Ewers out for this game, but going to be an exciting one. Going to be a lot of fun, man. But let's keep the train rolling. I know you got one more bet, and then we got some stuff in the comments we want to hit as well. So let's roll. You got one more for the people?
I do. And, I like to space them out for everyone today. So we'll go a little later in the day, night game. And one team I think is completely fraudulent and burned us once earlier this year. I'm going to fade them again. That's the Virginia Cavaliers. I like the Duke Blue Devils tonight, -2 against UVA. On every aspect of this game, Duke is better. They have the better rushing offense. They have better rushing defense. They're, I think, 24th nationally in rushing defense. They play a slow-paced game. Brandon Armstrong looks terrible. I watched him against Syracuse. I watched him against who do we lose with him? Was it Illinois? He just looks – I can't believe how bad he is. Yeah, I know. And it's just – they cannot move the ball through the air, so they had to switch their game up last week against Syracuse and try and pound the ball. And that's the only way they could get some success offensively. That's not going to work tonight against Duke. Duke looking great, 3-1 on the year. Their one loss against Kansas was last week. I still think they're very undervalued in the market. Mike Elko, new head coach, doing some good things there. I like Duke in this game to cover the spread. Now, earlier in the week, they were looking at bad weather. It's really turned to looks like it's going to be some clear skies, and the winds are minimal. So I think this is going to be a clear weather game, and that's good for Duke because I think they get at least 2 interceptions off that fraud at quarterback, that lefty from Virginia. So give me the Blue Devils, another blue for today.
All right, I love it, Duke, man. Elko, I like what Elko does on defense. Does a good job of keeping, doesn't let up a lot of explosive plays. I thought they were live in that Kansas game, man. I really did.
Yeah.
I was surprised at that outcome. But so what did you get it as? Is it 3 points? Is that what the line is?
I got
still 3?
2.5.
2.5. All right. So Duke 2.5.
And
so
it's 2.5
plays today.
Now. And it's 2.5 now. So yeah, if it opened -1 and it floated up to 3, back to 2.5. But if you want it now, DraftKings says 2.5.
2.5. Make sure you get it under the 3. If Duke money comes in, you don't want to get stuck with the 3. Awesome stuff. So, let's wrap up the plays real quick. I
think we should talk one more game. While we're
you want one more game?
All right, let's do it. I want to know where you're at. I want to know where you're at.
Yeah. Oh, this is an easy one for me. Yeah.
And let me see if you're on the same side as me.
All right.
It's NC State all day for me in this game. I just really think – no, you like Clemson?
No, we're on the other side. Yeah, we're definitely on the other side on this one.
Just think the defense that Clemson showed last week, if that shows up again, NC State's got a great defense, ranked in the top 10 in many categories, and I think they can give Ucla some real fits. He's not throwing against Wake every week. I think this could be tough for Clemson to move the ball.
Yeah, I like Clemson in the matchup. I bet Clemson. It's 6.5. But it's again, I understand why people want to fade Clemson after last week. And this is kind of the thing. This reminds me a little bit of Texas A&M, Arkansas, right? Like we come in, we know that Clemson's leaky in the secondary. I have no confidence Devin Leary in this offense, and NC State can take advantage of that. Like he's not Sam Hartman, and we've seen him in these positions time and time again. And I feel like he's come up small. But more importantly, like he has to do it in Death Valley. They have to go to Clemson in a hostile environment. They were lucky to get out of East Carolina alive. That was the only road game they had this year. They only covered 2 of their last 6 on the road. So I don't see that. I think this is a bad spot for them. I really do. And NC State's a team that I like, but it's just I don't think they have the ability to get explosive plays like Wake does. And I do think that I do like what I see from DJ from that Clemson offense. So it's tough. Like, listen, I bet it at 6.5. I don't know where it's at now. If it's over 7, it's probably not a buy. Like, I don't, it could be a game that's decided by a field goal. So, like, I could easily see it going both ways. However, though, I don't think, like, Clemson's a team that, like, when we talk about these playoff teams, we always have to include Clemson. But the reason we do is, like, it's almost like they can get there, but we know they really don't belong. And I think that's kind of like how I feel about them. Like, they're not this elite team, so they're vulnerable. But I'm just not sure this week is the week.
Yeah, so I have them over their wins. I have them to make the playoffs. So this is coming from a guy that just is you've talked about in past episodes. Sometimes you gotta react and say
and adjust. Yeah,
we've done it with Houston, and that's where I'm at with Clemson. Yes, JD, I had a little bite there a minute ago. The chat line is open. I'm going to close it down in a minute, but Ungulalele, 12 for 26 last season versus Wolfpack defense. Threw a pick, only managed 111 yards passing. Look, if they can't move the ball in the air, I don't have confidence that Shipley's going to get a lot of creases. I think he's going to have to grind out 20, 25 plus carries for his maybe 80 to 100. I think this is a slower paced game. And in that sense, that's why I like the points here.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like, listen, in NC State, I'll be all over NC State, I think, in this one. But I do think in Death Valley, I think it's going to be tough for them to travel there on the road. And maybe, it's very possible that I could be putting too much weight on that East Carolina game, right? But we saw them go on the road, not look well, right? They should have lost that game. And more importantly, had trouble with a mobile quarterback, right? So I think DJ, you can see him use his mobility a little bit more today, but it's going to be a fun matchup. I mean, there are a ton of good ones that I think can go either way. Like, this is one of them. The Ole Miss Kentucky game is another one. Like, we're going to learn so much about, like, Ole Miss in that matchup. Like, we kind of know we have with Kentucky, right? Like, if they can run with Rodriguez, they can hang with anybody. But if Levis has to win the game, they're going to have trouble, right? Ole Miss, we don't know. Like, is Jackson Dart really going to be able to get it done? Like, we find out today, right? Alabama, Arkansas. Is Alabama? Like, they have to win big today if they're going to be a team that's going to contend for a national title and keep pace with a team like Georgia. If Bryce Young's going to stay in the Heisman race, he's got to light up this secondary. So lots of huge games. I mean, Wake, Florida State, right, Dave? We didn't even talk about Wake, Florida State. Florida State, big boys now, laying touchdowns against Wake Forest, right? New role for them. Do they, how do they adapt to that role? So many fun games on the board. And I'm pumped, man. I can't wait to watch every one. It's going to be a great day for college football and hopefully a very profitable one.
Yeah. And great stuff. I mean, I think you just nailed a bunch of the exciting games. Wake, Florida State, my gut told me right away, Wake, but then I started thinking and diving into it more. And with that great pass defense that Florida State has and the pressure they get on the defensive line, that's kind of Hartman's weakness, right? If he has to throw off schedule, off timing, he throws them up for grabs as he did on the last play of the game in Clemson. So right now I am leaning Florida State, but that's going to be a fun one. You're going to learn a lot today. And we will in these other games. So Clemson's going to be
Oklahoma State, Baylor. We're going to find out who Oklahoma State is, right? And that's the best part is like these non-conference games is almost like the preseason. And now we're getting into the real season and we're finding out who these teams are.
And did you say Miss State, Mississippi State, A&M?
Texas A&M. That's
we'll find out more
awesome
about Miss
game.
State today than we will about A&M. I think we know what A&M is after.
We know what A&M is.
Yeah.
Yep. I played Miss State in that one.
I would too.
I think they put it on them. I think it's over for Jimbo. But I do. I think it's I've seen enough. And listen, I cashed on A&M the last 2 weeks. Cashed against Miami, cashed against Arkansas. Off the bus. Off the bus. Yeah. We're turning it around. We're getting off the bus. But listen, we got to get out of here, guys. We appreciate everybody tuning in. Thank you so much. Braden, Undercover Capper, Gio Lenhart from Giovanni's Bets. Follow those guys. They do a tremendous job. Going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully West Virginia keeps it within the number and we see a lot of points in that one so I can be a little richer next time when we're back here on Saturday. But thanks for everybody for tuning in. Make sure you download the Sharp app. Go download it and hit the like button. hit the like button on the YouTube channel, show us some love, and join the Discord. Sweat these games out with us. We're all here to make money. We're all one team. So we appreciate you guys joining in, and we'll see you guys next week.